9. The American Dream. In 1986, a newly built vehicle called the American Dream shot to fame as the new record holder for the world's longest limousine. Measuring just over 100 feet, or 30.5 meters long, it contained a waterbed, a swimming pool, a jacuzzi, a putting green, living room furniture, a helipad, several TVs, a refrigerator, a phone, and more. The 25,000-pound or 11,340-kilogram vehicle can be driven from both ends and can accommodate up to 75 passengers. Its original builder, custom car designer J. Orberg, based its design on the 1976 Cadillac Eldorado limousine. He equipped each end with a pair of 8-cylinder engines and installed a hinge in the middle of the extra-long car so it could turn corners. During its brief rise to fame, the limo was frequently rented out for appearances in movies and at major events. But the excitement over the car quickly wore off, especially because it was inconvenient to drive and difficult to find parking for due to its size. It stopped receiving regular maintenance and started to rust out as it sat in storage, neglected and forgotten. But the American Dream got a second chance at life thanks to a man named Michael Manning, who owns an automotive teaching museum in Long Island, New York called the Autoseum. When he first saw the car years after it was last used, he described it as graffiti-covered garbage with flat tires, broken windows, and parts that had deteriorated beyond repair. Manning nevertheless fell in love with the vehicle and set his sights on restoring it. But he ran into some funding issues after acquiring the American Dream, and it sat for several more years before he decided to sell it on eBay. Florida-based tourist attraction owner Michael Deser bought it and had it shipped to Orlando. Determined to bring the car back to life, he sought help from Manning, several other experts, and some auto body repair students. Then, 3 years and more than $250,000 later, the limo was finally restored to its former glory. 8. Blastolene B702 and Blastolene Special. Inspired by the French cars of the 1930s, the Blastolene B702 was designed by Michael Leeds and Randy Grubb, who are also known as the Blastolene brothers. While it boasts an obviously European design, the ride is uniquely American, in the words of Randy Grubb, due to its 11-liter GM V12 petrol engine. Known as the Twin Six, the engine was built by General Motors between 1960 and 1965 for use in the company's medium-duty pickup trucks. The Blastolene B702 is characteristic of the oversized custom cars that the Blastolene brothers are famous for designing. And their most famous creation is the Blastolene Special. Better known as the Jay Leno tank car, it was built in 2001 using a Continental AV17905B tank engine, which was once used to power the 51-ton, 51,000-kilogram M47 Patton tank. It also contained a Greyhound bus transmission and featured a retro-style sheet metal body. The engine alone weighs as much as a small car, while the entire 21-foot-long, 6.4-meter car tips the scales at 95,000 pounds, or 43,000 kilograms. Despite its massive size, though, the Blastolene Special has an impressive top speed of over 140 miles per hour, 225 kilometers per hour. In 2003, Jay Leno bought the car for $125,000. and further improved upon its design to make it more roadworthy. He replaced the transmission, improving its fuel efficiency from 2 to 3 miles per gallon to 5 miles per gallon, along with several other components. Leno is often seen driving the Blastolene Special in public, and it also makes frequent appearances at car shows in the greater Los Angeles area. 7. The Orbitron. Made in 1964 by American artist and car customizer Ed Big Daddy Roth, Blue Orbitron's appearance could be compared to that of a futuristic drag racer, powered by a 1955 or 1956 Chevy V8 engine. It had a cockpit lined with faux fur and a portable TV. It was even topped with a hydraulically operated plexiglass bubble roof. and had a distinctive asymmetrical front end with red, green, and blue headlights. The Orbitron was one of Ed Roth's few cars that he considered a mistake, mainly because of how its plexiglass body concealed most of its heavily chromed engine and chassis. He also blamed the car's downfall on the Beatlemania frenzy that swept the nation, diverting the attention even of die-hard car enthusiasts to the breakthrough British band. 3 years after the car was built, Roth sold it to fellow auto customizer Darryl Starbird for $750. Then, during the early 1970s, it landed in the possession of a car collector in Texas who used it for bail collateral. A few years later, the owner sold it to a carnival owner from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. By then, the Orbitron was starting to show serious wear and tear, and it was in much worse condition when it appeared outside an adult bookstore in the mid-1980s. The car had been spray-painted black and was missing its bubble top, its asymmetrical front end, a rear wheel, and several other components. Despite its neglected condition, though, the owner claimed it was a family heirloom and was extremely reluctant to sell it. After intense and lengthy negotiations, the Orbitron was finally returned to the U.S., where famous car customizer Bo Boekman restored it to its former glory at his California shop, where it remains part of his collection today. 6. The Bentley Tank. In 2019, a group of Russian car enthusiasts and YouTubers, who go by the name Academe G, filled their efforts to put tank tracks on a Bentley Continental GT luxury car. Nicknamed the Ultra Tank, it was built using the cheapest Continental the friends could find. They got to work swapping its wheels out for Caterpillar tracks and making other changes and repairs that were needed. The group encountered several problems over the months they spent modifying the vehicle, including faulty brakes and more than one incident where the tracks nearly came off and totaled the body. But they kept working to perfect the Ultra Tank, and the end result was an unlikely-looking contraption with a top speed of 81 miles per hour, 130 kilometers per hour. And while that's not very fast compared to a Continental GT on wheels, which can reach speeds of over 200 miles per hour, 322 kilometers per hour, it's impressive for a tracked vehicle which is also capable of driving over cars. The YouTubers even unofficially dubbed it the world's fastest tank and said that they plan to continue working to improve its speed in the future. 5. 1948 Norman Timms Special. Norman Timms was a talented engineer from Los Angeles who went down in automotive history for his accomplishments, which included pioneering the use of negative pressure under vehicles, also known as the ground effect. During the 1940s, he decided to devote his spare time to building his dream car. His masterpiece, the 1948 Norman Timms Special, was inspired by the pre-World War II designs of the Grand Prix Streamliners, built by Auto Union, known today as Audi. Timms sketched his vision out years before he actually built the car. Then he began building miniature clay models of the prospective vehicle. He eventually built the actual car, starting with a chassis. A lot of the work that Timms did by hand would be difficult even today with modern equipment. Yet he managed to build the car from scratch with help from renowned custom builder Emil Diet. To maximize its aerodynamic capabilities and streamline design, the 17.5-foot-long, 5.3-meter, two-seat Roadster has no trunk, hood, or door openings. The engine and spare tire were accessed by pressing a button that activated a hydraulic system that lifted the rear section of the body. It would be an understatement to say that the car was a success. The Norman Timms Special attracted attention wherever it went, and it was even featured in the second issue of Motor Trend magazine in 1949. Sadly, though, it spent decades neglected and rotting, first outside a California restaurant and then in a barn. During the early 2000s, car collector Gary Curvaney bought the Streamliner for $17,000. It underwent a 7-year restoration and spent 8 years being featured in car shows throughout the country before being destroyed in a wildfire at its owner's home in 2018. In 2020, Curvaney told Auto Evolution that the Norman Timms Special is one of 4 cars out of his 76-car collection that he has decided to keep and restore, rather than write off as a total loss. If you could design your own car, what features would you add that aren't typically available in modern-day vehicles? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. 4. The Batman Tumblr. If you've seen the Batman trilogy, then you're likely familiar with the Tumblr, but you may be surprised to learn that the vehicle featured in the movies is a real working car. It took about a year to build the prototype, but the 6 vehicles that followed were built in a shorter amount of time. Each Tumbler was used for a different purpose during filming, and the cars performed real stunts in the street for the camera while reaching speeds of up to 90 miles per hour, 145 kilometers per hour. Specialists built each Tumbler from scratch, with each team member tasked with fabricating a single part. The end product was a 5,000-pound, 2,300-kilogram beast that was just as fast as it was powerful, with a set of front wheels that were capable of climbing up a wall with the back wheels on the ground. 3. Firebird 1 XP21. Since the late 1960s, the Firebird has been primarily known as a Pontiac car, but it was also the name for an innovative prototype car built by General Motors during the 1950s. It was a popular time for experimenting with cars, and the Firebird was one of the more out-of-the-box designs born of this era. The XP21 Firebird 1 was the first jet-powered car ever built. It was never meant to enter mass production. It was an experimental vehicle, which allowed its designers more freedom than usual when it came to factors like practicality and budget. Their ultimate goal was to determine whether the gas turbine engine was an efficient and economical option for future vehicles. The 2,500-pound or 1,100-kilogram rocket-shaped creation has a fiberglass reinforced plastic body resembling the fuselage of a winged aircraft. Its interior appropriately resembles the cockpit of a fighter jet, with a single bucket seat, a yoke-shaped steering wheel, and a glass overhead canopy. The Firebird was equipped with an engine capable of 370 horsepower at a power turbine speed of 13,000 RPM, giving it a theoretical top speed of 200 miles per hour or 322 kilometers per hour. Developed specifically for the car, the engine was called the Whirlfire Turbo Power Jet Turbine. Given its experimental nature, only the test supervisor, Emmett Conklin, was entrusted with test driving it. He reportedly reached 100 miles per hour, or 160 kilometers per hour, but nearly crashed after shifting into second gear because the tires lost traction. The close call shook Conklin up enough for him to pass the test driving duties on to professional race car driver and engineer Maury Rose, who had 3 Indy 500 wins under his belt. But Rose only test drove the car a handful of times before General Motors banned high-speed runs. GM still owns the Firebird today, however, it's very rarely displayed in public. 2. Bandera Ford. Back in 2010, a futuristic-looking flying saucer-like Ford was spotted in a Wendy's parking lot in Ohio. So, intrigued bystanders set out to learn the story behind it and discovered a Car and Driver article from 1998 profiling the unique vehicle's builder, John Bender. He built the so-called Bandera Ford and another like it over a 3-year period during the 90s. At the time the article was published, Bender was 68 years old. He was a retired career mechanic and electrician who'd always aspired to design his own car. Bender finally brought his vision to fruition with his 2 Bandera Fords. The Car and Driver article describes the vehicle as a 4-passenger mid-engined coupe with gull-wing doors and a Ford Pinto suspension. The car is only 42 inches or 107 centimeters tall and sits low to the ground. One of the Bandera Fords was white, while the other was gold. While it's unclear what happened to the cars, this image of what looks like an abandoned Bandera Ford suggests that at least one of them was deserted and forgotten about at some point in time. Photos of the vehicle that were captured from the Wendy's parking lot in 2010 show that it was visibly aging on both the inside and out, giving the space-age car an ironically outdated look, serving as a reminder that it wasn't something from the future. 1. LOF Electric. During the early decades of car manufacturing, there was something called the cycle car. It was a type of lightweight and inexpensive motor vehicle that was meant to reflect something in between a motorcycle and a full-sized car. One of the most unique cycle cars ever made was the LOF Electric, or the electric egg. It was the brainchild of French industrial designer Paul Arzenz, who designed the car in 1938 and built it 4 years later in 1942. Arzenz thought up the idea of creating an electric car during a fuel rationing period in Nazi-occupied France. The original battery-powered electric egg had an aluminum body with a plexiglass window. Most of its 770-pound or 350-kilogram weight was in its 5 12-volt batteries, which sat underneath the vehicle's bench seat and weighed 130 pounds or 59 kilograms each. The car had a 62-mile or 100-kilometer range and a top speed of 43 miles per hour, 70 kilometers per hour. After World War II, Arzenz replaced the battery-powered engine with a single-cylinder gas engine, raising the electric egg's top speed to 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers per hour. He then drove it until he died in 1990, at which point it was donated to a museum in Paris. It remains on display today at the Cité de l'Automobile Car Museum in the city of Mulhouse. Which of these cars would you be proud to own? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.